Hi everyone, so this is the third in the series on modeling this hand mixer. I've got a shelled item. What I'm going to do from here is put in some vents in the front. I'm going to split this into 4 parts. I'm going to put a motor inside, some ribs, and some mounting bosses. So let's get to it. Right, so I'm going to do as I did in the other ones. I'm just going to follow my design tree. So what I've got here is an extrude cut. The sketch is on the front plane or the right plane, and what I've done is I've extruded that sketch with a 2-degree taper sort of towards the back. So in molding terms, that would make sense because then the inside face would be where you'd have your shut off. And then I've added a fillet to that, and then I've done a circular pattern. And I think the circular pattern is worth looking at. So in order to be able to see this, I'll have to go straight to this view because I won't be able to do it inside the command. I won't be able to select a view. And so the circular pattern command, what I've done is I've chosen an edge. In this case, I don't think this edge here would do it because that is not a circle. It is now something slightly different because of the way it's been cut through a complex surface. So I've used this little pip on the front as my edge. You could draw a circle as well, a sketch circle, and use that. Then I've added 22 instances, and they're equally spaced. And that's just what I figured would work. So I just need to show you this one item here, the instances to skip. So if I should want to skip some instances because I think they might get in the way of molding or for whatever reason, I can just select these items as I go. And then make sure you have geometry pattern selected, and you may have to, no, in this case you won't have to. You won't have to worry about which body. There's only one body. So I'm going to say yes to that. And there we go. We have a pattern of vents. And the next item is a plane, right? So that plane is just tangent to 3 points to be able to create this cutout for the switch mechanism to fit through for the switch to slide forwards and backwards. So I've called that the switch aperture. I don't think I need to show you that. Maybe the plane, I'll just show you I chose 3 points. So I've got 1, 2, 3, or you could choose 2 points and then make them align to one of the planes. So the front plane, for instance. So for instance, this third one, no, I think it would be the second one. We could replace with the front plane. No, it's not the front. And that's not quite going to do it. There we go. It would be something like that. All right, so I've got 3 vertices, but you can figure that out for yourself. So that's the plane, and then I'll have to re-establish this because the sketch has gone off into the distance. So let's just go back to that sketch and see how it was created. All right, so I've got this dimension here going in the wrong direction. If I just double tap it, go in that direction, that's perfect. So all this is a slot. It's the slot from the center, and then I've used the center point to dimension from the origin, and then I've lined the center line up with the origin as a coincident relationship, and then added some dimensions in. Right, straightforward, and then I've cut perpendicular to that plane, which is fine. It's quite moldable, not a problem. Right, then let's have a look at, I've got a few other details, and these are just to be able to round the item off. So a fillet, a couple of fillets on that pip, and then some split lines. All right, so let's have a look at the split line. So I've got this split line rear. All it is a line 4 millimeters. I can see this is wrong. Let's just double click on that and see if I can reverse the direction. Seems not to have done it. Let's just make sure that our solid bodies are visible. And then come back down, select the split line rear. Okay, so I in fact had it correct. And let's make that 4 millimeters and update. All right, there we go. So I have a split line and the split, let's just show that item. That is fairly straightforward. So let's just show you how to do that. You select the line that you want, and then it'll give you this dialog box which says, do you want an assembly? You say okay, and then you are given 3 options. So however many bodies will be split, it'll give you those 3 bodies, and you need to select each one of them and make sure that consume cut bodies is not selected, and say yes. You don't need to name anything, it's fine. And then the second split is the top line, so that center partition, that's just a line drawn from the top plane, and the same thing. So let's just go into this. It'll ask you for an assembly. You select which 2 items you want. Say okay. Right, and at the moment this one is hidden. Let's just make it visible. And then what happens when you create a split is you get given, or Solidworks creates folders for you under the solid bodies folder, and you can rename these. So you just click inside that one, click and let go. And so I'm going to call that rear cover. And then it should stay that, it should give you that name later on as well when you want to do an assembly, exploded assembly, or a bill of materials. So this boss here, this is just my motor. So the way I created that was I created a sketch. So let's just have a look at the sketch. The sketch is on the front plane. It's this one here. Okay, you can see it uses the front plane. If I just click on this, you can see here it's going to the, or the right plane, sorry, not the front plane. So it's going to, on the right plane. And then when I did the actual boss, the great thing about Solidworks is you don't have to use your sketch as the origin point. You can actually offset the sketch as I've done here. So instead of saying from the sketch plane go offset, and I've offsetted 60 millimeters from that point backwards, and then I've created the body of the item another 100 millimeters. So we can see the, let's just make this hidden, and then go to the motor and make that visible. All right, so there it is in place. So now I can use that to do whatever else I want to do. And let's just see what else I've got in here. So I filleted the inside so that when I put a lip and a groove in here, that'll follow quite neatly. In fact, let's do the lip and the groove. So I'm going to hide these 2 items. Okay, so I'm going to start with a lip. So if you go to your features, you go to lip and groove. And what you figured out in class, thanks to a few of you, is that the top line here is for the groove and the bottom line is for the lip. So whichever one you choose is what you'll get. So that's, let's put a groove in this one. And then here you need to choose a body. So when you select that body, you'll get all the other commands. Leave the second item alone in this case, and then select a plane from which to orientate that item. So that will be the front plane. And then the groove selection, you'll see the first one here has a face to it. So you need to select all the faces you want the groove to appear on. And you have to do it in this case one by one because there are some gaps. So it's on those 3 faces. And then I'm going to leave tangent propagation on. And then the next thing you need to choose is the the edge, and you need to choose that because you could be doing this on the outer edge or the inner edge. So I'm going to select like this, and because I'm missing a radius here, it's not doing I have to do that by hand. This one should continue. No, it isn't. All right, so I have to select these all one by one. I think it's because I've got the order wrong. But I'll do this in any case just to show you how to do it. And then we can play with the order later on. So that's that one on the inside going all the way around. And then you just decide how wide your groove needs to be. So my wall thickness is 1.8, I think. So I'm going to make this 0.85, and then I'll make the two zeros in there, two dots in there, 0.85, and I'll make the other one 0.85 so that there's a 0.1 millimeter difference between the two. Then the taper between the two is 5 degrees. You might have to make it smaller depending on what happens on these faces. And then C is the height, so I've got it at 2. Let's make that a little bit less, 1.5, and we should be good to go. Let's see what happens. All right, there we go. So we have a groove in place, and it's called a groove. And since I don't have a lip on the other one, let's just go to the other side. So I'm going to go to the left casing and make that visible, and make this one, I'm going to hide that one. And so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the lip and the groove, but this time I'm going to select the lip, which is the second one, select this body. Which plane do I want it to be perpendicular to? That will be the front plane. Yep. The lip selection. So once again, which of these faces do you want to put the lip on? Right, so there's 3 of them in this case, and then we might be luckier here. I think I put radiuses or fillets on this one. So it's going to be that one. There we go. So now you can see, because I've got radii or fillets in here, the selection is much easier. So it's just selecting as we go along. Right, and so that's building a lip. Actually, I'm not sure if that's the right place. Yes, it is the right place. So I need those to match what's happening on the other side. I chose a height of 1.5 and this is 1.3. So I've got a 0.2 mil difference, so that's correct. B is the lip width, and that can go a little bit more, 1.85, and then 5 degrees I'm going to leave as it is. If you select jump gaps, it'll actually fill in gaps. So you'll see here it's filled this gap in here with an item. We don't want that. So make sure that's not selected, and we should be all right. Let's see. Right, so there's a problem. I think it's done it, but it doesn't like the fact that the 5 degrees, if I take a section through here, just drag this out a bit. So it doesn't like the fact that 5 degrees in both directions might contradict with this wall here. But it seems to be okay with actually making it. So if you can if that's all you need to achieve for this exercise, you don't need to go and get all of the tapers right. No, this seems to have done it just okay, just fine. So I'm going to save this in the meantime. And then move on to the ribs. So I've got 2 sets of ribs. I'll move on to the mounting ribs in a moment, but I want to put in some strengthening ribs. So I'm going to do it just on one of these bodies. So on the front, I think it's the front face, front plane. I could put the rib on the front plane. That means it would start from the front plane and then project downwards. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sketch on here, just a set of lines, and then project it downwards. But I want the rib to start a little bit lower. So I'm going to hold the control button down, grab this and drag it out, and let's make it about 10 millimeters. And then on that plane, I'm going to put a sketch. And we can put a series of lines in here. And I'm going to create a pattern. And let's just make this 20. This is just to show you the principle. As to how you actually do it, that's up to you. I'm going to say that's okay. And you'll notice my sketch doesn't need to touch anything. As long as it stays between the boundaries, if you're projecting the sketch from the top, as long as it stays between the boundaries of what you want it to project to, it'll select the side walls. So let's put in a few dimensions. I want that one to go maybe from this edge. Let's make that 10. And then just reinforce the spacing between these as 20. Okay, so that's fully defined other than the ends, which I'm not going to worry about for now. And just to show you that you can also add in sketches at an angle. So I'll put 2 in here and just make sure that they don't aim off into some place where they, where they can no longer make sense. So going off that direction. I'm not going to dimension these for now. You can do that. That's what you should do. So leave that. And then use that as the basis for the rib. And you'll see that you have the rib is facing inwards. There's the arrow. If it's facing outwards, just make sure it goes inwards. Make sure you select the body. And we've got 3 options. So you've got from the first side, from both sides, and then from the second side. We want to make this the same thickness at root as 67% of the wall thickness. So I'm going to type in my wall thickness, 1.8. I'm going to multiply it by 0.67 and say enter. And then when you select the draft on and you type in a draft, I'm going to use 0.5. You'll get these 2 options at the top. So do you want that thickness to be 1.2? Let's just round that down. 1.2 at the sketch plane or at the wall interface? And it's at the wall interface that you want it to be 1.2 so that you avoid sink marks as far as possible. And if I say yes, it'll do it. Okay, so that's how you create those items. I'm not quite happy with the height of that, so I can just double click on this, get this dimension to go a little bit lower, and that'll adjust my rib height. Okay, so that's how you do ribs. Let's do some more ribs. Let's do these ones here. I'm going to hide this one for now. In class, what I did is I left this in place to be able to get the sketch for this item. So I think let's reiterate that just to remind you. I'm going to make all of these like that. So there you can see that sketch. The round part of it is 0.2 millimeters offset from the motor casing out a bit. There's 0.2. And then I've just created a line 14 millimeters from one of the edges and then just gone up. You can go up as tall as you want. I think not beyond the whole item, but just this would work. Let's just re-establish that as 14. And then exit. Right. So that's one rib, and I'm going to hide that. And here I can do the same patterning. Actually, let me just show you. So we can just choose a linear pattern and we can go in a direction, choose a line which is going in the direction you want it to go. And at the moment, that's quite weird. I might have chosen, I've chosen a face, that's why. So let's just delete that face and choose a line instead. Right, and then go in the opposite direction and increase the spacing. And so that's how you would get these items to space themselves out. What I'd shown you in class is what if we wanted these to be at different spaces. So I'm going to suppress this one and go to the next item, which is a sketch which I'd created. And I'm going to deliberately mess with the sketch because the sketch is correct at the moment. And I don't want it to be correct so I can replicate the error that I created in class. I'd had the sketch somewhere around there, sort of close to the middle of this opening. And I think I'd put in a dimension. So on the sketch, I've got 4 points, and the points are going to be the locating items. Because the line is a construction line, Solidworks will ignore it, so it'll only consider the whole item. So sketches are sort of whole items. So if I exit that and then go to the sketch pattern, you'll see I get an error. And if I'd taken note when I was in here of what was happening, you would have seen, so let's just reselect that. If I'd gone down, you can see that SolidWorks has placed has patterned these according to my original rib, but it's placed them at the level of that sketch. So in fact, the sketch goes through, it seems, these points here. So all I need to do is make sure that the sketch matches the origin point of the original sketch for this rib. I hope that makes sense, but I think as soon as I do this, you'll see what I mean. So let's edit the sketch. Let's get rid of that. Let's select the line and that point, make them coincident. And as soon as I come out, you'll see it placed them exactly where I need them to be. That's because this original sketch was created relative to the same origin point. So that's where I went wrong. And so you can see these have been placed at the points they should, well, I might want them to be. Let's just see if I put the motor in place. Right, so I might want to mess with this a bit. I might want to say, let's increase that by 60 or something. Not sure if it, yes, that seems to be doing it. And we could, play with this as well. So the beauty of parametric design is you can just go and change these things so that it suits. And that seems to be doing what I want. So that's all good, I think. And let's just see what this next pattern is. Okay, so that's a repeat. I'm going to suppress that. That's a repeat of that pattern there. And then the last thing to understand is how to make a mounting boss. Okay, so I've got a mounting boss in place here. I'll run through how to do it. But what I did first is I created a sketch which is going to help me locate that mounting boss, because at the moment there are no features that I can use to locate it. So just have a look at this sketch. I've decided that I would like my mounting boss to be 25 millimeters from the origin point and 57 millimeters in the vertical plane down from it. And then this one doesn't matter. Times 10, I'll just put it in. Can be anything, can be 51, whatever you want, just as long as it's a circle. And then the mounting boss is a little bit complex. It's going to look complex. So I'm going to clear my selections just to start from the beginning and explain this step by step. So before I actually start with the position and the direction and all the rest of it, there are 2 boss types. There is a mounting boss. Sorry, there are 2. Yes, there's a pin and a mounting boss. So this is the mounting boss. There are 2 parts to the mounting boss. There's the head and the thread. So the head is where this head of the screw will go in, and the thread is obviously the part that will receive the thread. And then you also have, although it doesn't seem to appear here, as a pin boss. I think I'd have to choose this again, and then you'd have the option of choosing which of those 2 you get. So position is you have to select which item you're going to go put it in. You'll see it placed it on that face. The orientation, you have to choose a face which is going to be perpendicular. So I think the front face is going to do it. There we go. So you can see it's righted that boss so that it's sitting properly upright. And then the last one is the actual position. So that's going to be this sketch which I created to locate it exactly where I want it to be. And then the rest is just a matter of filling in detail. So A is just the height of the boss, the total height from I think it is from this plane here. So at the moment I've got it at 40. That's too high. 30 is better. Right, and then B is the diameter. So the diameter you need to figure out, like what's the size of the screw or washer you're going to put in, plus 2 times the wall thickness, plus a little bit of leeway. So I've figured out that my screw of the head is going to be about 5.4, I think. So if you add 2 times the wall thickness to that, 6, 7, 8. So this should probably be about 9.5 to be safe. And then C is just the width of this top hat here. This should probably also increase a little bit. I would actually normally have the screw in place so that I could see what I was doing, but we haven't got to that yet. D is just the height of that top hat. So we've got C is the diameter, D is the height, 1.5 is fine. And then the next set is just a set of dimensions for what happens inside that tube, if you will. So what kind of taper do you want to put in here? 2 degrees is fine. F is the hole size, and I've got a 3mm screw, so 3.2 to give us a bit of clearance. G is the inside diameter, which would be 5.4 plus a bit more, so let's say 5.7. What I should really do is I should take this dimension here, 9.5, subtract the wall thickness that I'm looking for, which is about 2.4. So 9.5 minus 2.4 should be 7 point something. So let's just do that. Let's make it 7.3. See what happens. Then H is just the wall thickness at the top of that top hat, and then I is the taper inside, which should correspond with this one here. So I'm sure if I make that 2, this will also become 2. They should correspond. And then this is the gap that you want to exist between the head boss, that one there, and the screw boss, so that there's a bit of clearance. And then the fins, you need to choose some way of orienting that, and that's going to be perpendicular to the direction of the actual fins. So let's just see what happens if I put in two fins in here. You'll see the 2 fins run perpendicular to this top plane. If I type 3 in, one of them will be perpendicular, the other 2 won't, and so forth. So 4, and then usually the error that, if you're going to get an error, it's going to be because of this C height. This is normally like way too big. Let's say it was 40 there. It's going to go red, and nothing will change until you change this C dimension. So let's go back to whatever that was. I think I had 17. Let's make it 20 and see what happens. That's fine. And then dimension A. Right, so I'm sure this is going to be quite perplexing for you. Just trying to figure all of this out. But it just goes step by step, and it shouldn't be that bad. Then B is the width of your fin at the bottom, the width of the thickness of the fin. So 1.2 is about right, because that's 67% of the thickness of the wall of the actual item. C is 20, which is that's the height of the fin, and then 1 degree is how much you want it to taper. And 2.4 would be that, so between that face and that face. So you can make that, let's just make it less so that you can see what happens. So you can see that little cutoff gets smaller, and then what degree do you want that to cut off at, and so you can say 45, or as I had it, 60. Right, so a lot of information. If you were to do this by one, it would be more work, I think, because here you can get everything at once. So we'll do that. And then if I want to place another one of these somewhere else, I can do that by just putting another sketch in place. So let's go to the front. So on this plane, I'm just going to put 2 points. I'm going to create some sort of guideline in that direction and another one in that direction, and then give these some dimensions. 118, for instance, 150. Let's go like this, and then put in a point at the end of these lines. Okay, so now I should be able to take this whole item and just pattern it on those sketches. So go to linear pattern, go to sketch driven pattern, select the sketch, so it'll be this one here. The reference vertex would be, okay, so make sure that the origin that you choose is the same as the origin for your original feature. So you don't have to go and remake all of these features, you just do it once. Could not be patterned using a geometry pattern, so let's take geometry pattern off. See if that'll do it. And that's done it. So there we go. Brilliant. You don't have to do a lot of work. You just do it once and you've got all 3 in place. Okay, so if you were doing a really slick product, you would not have these mounting holes. You'd find other ways to connect this item. But for this exercise, for what you're doing for this project, please do put them in, because I just need to see that you know how to do this. So let's do the reciprocal on the other side, and then that would pretty much cover all of what we need to do. So I'm going to make the right casing visible and the left casing I'm going to hide. And let's just hide this as well. So on this one, I want to do the same thing, but this time. So in this case, here we go. What I wasn't able to show you earlier was that you can either select a hardware boss or a pin boss. So the pin boss, that's just a pin. We're not going to worry about that for now. I just want the reciprocal of the head boss, which is the screw boss. I want a face, so it'll be here, right? And a plane, which will be the top plane again. No, the front plane. So let's put it in place, and you can see it's actually gone outside. So just switch the direction so it comes inside again. And then the location, I don't need to now worry about relocating. I've got these 2 sketches available. I just select the same item, and you can see it's gone red, and that's just because this one here at the bottom, see, let's just make that 5 or something. See if that'll do it. No, it seems not to have done it. So you might have to play with this a little bit, because okay, no, maybe what you can do here is select the mating face, and then you can select the mating face of your prior item. So I probably now need to make this one visible, and just make this one invisible for now. So the mating face I want is, I think it's this one here. So that should now make everything on the other side, the actual head boss, correspond without me doing too much work. So this is a little bit tricky, because you have to go and make these visible and not visible. Okay, so let's just go back, delete that face, that one there we go. So we just have to select the correct face, and you can see it's pretty much put this in. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that it's got a gap here of 0.254. I'd selected 0.1 prior, so this should all be similar to the other one. although it seems not, because that should be a little bit more, I think. 9 point something, 4, 2 degrees, fine. D as 5, which is, where's the, D is the inside, so that should probably have to get a little bit larger. I think it needs to be about 7 or so. That looks better. And then E is the hole. That should be correct. 3, maybe. So that's the size of the hole that the screw is going to fit in, so it should be smaller than on the head boss. And then F is 1.5, which would be, that looks right. G, and we can check this a bit later. So G is the depth of the hole. So here's one you need to be careful of. I want that hole to be much deeper than this, so it should be about 25. But obviously you don't want it to go too far, so, because if you went, say, 45, then the hole's going to be out here in space. You're going to have a hole all the way through your casing, which is not what you want. So let's see what 30 does. It's roughly correct. And then the last bit is to do the same thing as before on the fins. Select the top plane to orient them. There'll be 4 of them. The height needs to increase now quite dramatically. Okay, so that's too much. Okay, that's looking better. And these are looking very, very thin at the top. So I'm going to have to change the degree that of the taper, 0.5. And maybe, yes, I need to change the root thickness, 1.2. There we go. That's looking much better. And I'm going to leave the rest as it is. I mean, as long as you get some idea of how to do it, that's good enough. All right, so there it is. And then I can do the same thing as before. To locate these, just go to your sketch-driven pattern. Select the sketch, which would be this one here. Right, and then the origin point must be the same origin point as your original. Make sure the geometry pattern is on, just so that you can select the right body first. You might have to, yeah, that seems to be right. You might have to unselect this later. Let's try that again. And so we've got those 2 in place. Let's see if it's, okay, it doesn't like geometry patterns, so take it off. So that's quite a thing to just take note of. You need to select geometry body to be able to select the right body by unselecting the auto select, and then deselect geometry pattern to be able to make it work. Okay, and so that's all in place. And so if I now get all of these to be visible, show, everything should fit together. We haven't put the screws in right now, but I will show you in the next video and in class how to add the screws and how to do an assembled view and the drawings from it. So the last thing to do here is to evaluate. So unlike in an assembly view, you can't do a collision detection or interference detection. I'll find out if there is a way of doing it inside a multi-body part. What you have to do instead, just to check yourself, is just do a section view. Right, so I've got one in place that's close to where I want it to be. So I can see from this view here that the lip and the groove are going to work. There's a gap between the 2 of them. But I want to make sure that what happens between the 2 bosses is correct. So at the moment, I can see there is a bit of an interference between these 2. That one is extending. So I would just need to measure that. Probably best to measure in place at the moment, and just measure roughly the gap here is. And it appears to be about 0.5. So I need to drop the height of this one and or increase the depth of that one of the 2, but the rest looks good. And then maybe the taper on this is way too severe, needs to be 2 degrees. Now there is a way you can double click on this. If you go to the original one and look at the dimensions, this is sometimes quite difficult to figure out though. Like as you can see here, so that seems to be the height If I double click on that and say 1.5, right, so you can see I've actually just corrected the height of that pip or that top hat so that the two don't interfere. So I've corrected it on the sketch. So if you can get that right, that's a quicker way than going back into the feature and doing it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.